Okay, with my my assets prepped and ready to go, I'm just working into a new document that's got a background image placed. I've got a bit of a white layer over it just so I can kind of knock out the image. I'm going to go back and finish this all off in Photoshop with this image, but I'm using it to line up my bits and pieces here as I check out the perspective grid editor. So I'm just popping into the view menu. I'm going to be doing this a lot. Going to the perspective grid, and I'm just going to bring up the 2-point perspective tool, and also using the perspective grid tool to have a look at how things work. Okay, pretty straightforward. I'm going to do lots of resetting as well because I find it's the easiest way to kind of get things to go back to normal. This little doodad at the bottom I can see is adjusting my perspective in the foreground as if the object was near to me. Across the top there I've got a horizon line which changes that that perspective in the distance. You know, I can move the whole thing around in the image and so on. These little bad boys will let me change where the perspective planes are sitting, so I can do things like intersections and so on, but that's a bit too fancy for me for the moment, so I'm just going to pop back into the view menu and reset by hitting the 2-point perspective. So I can adjust the height. Remember, none of this is going to affect the actual artwork. It's just going to affect where we place it, kind of thing. Got this little doodad. I don't even know what this does. It's cool. You know, and I can adjust the grid lines and that sort of stuff. And, you know, so before you start editing, have a bit of a play around and get used to sort of moving this thing around. As I said, coming back to the perspective editor, one thing I found particularly tricky was this ability to change the perspective of each of these planes. Now that can be useful, but for this instance, what I'm preferring to do is to once again reset my 2-point perspective, you know, and that just sort of gets me back to normal. That kind of looks pretty good, you know. I don't want things to be too aggressive in terms of perspective. I've got some more little edits to make, but the very first thing I want to do before I go any further is choose lock station point. And the benefit of this is that it allows me to alter the perspective in both those dimensions without things going too hairy. Pretty good. I'm just going to make some other little definitions. I'll use that 2-point perspective preset. I'm going to measure in pixels. This is just my, you know, my preferences. You'll have your own preferences. I'm setting the viewing distance so it's not as savage a perspective. So by sitting further back, it gives me a flatter perspective, much like using a long lens on a camera, like a zoom lens. It's like zooming in towards something. It kind of flattens the perspective. So I'm just increasing that. I might come back. The other thing I'm going to do is just knock back the kind of opacity of the grid itself so that I can see things a little bit better. There we go. So because I've changed those, and you'll notice that the grid changes as I zoom in and out. Don't be concerned about that. Now what I'm able to see is that I'm just going to locate my kind of front point of the thing, and my artwork is square as well, so I'm just wanting it to be reasonably, let's just get this little thing out of the way, the thing that I don't know how to use. Oh, that's him there. I really don't know how to use him. I'm just going to adjust the number of grids there. I can change that in the define area that I was in a second ago as well. Ooh, there we go, buddy. Get in there. Now that I've locked those station points together, I'll see that I'm able to, you know, get this kind of thing going where I can Yeah, get a bit of adjusting going. Maybe that does one a little fraction more of an angle. Just trying to get kind of a view. Whoa, come back, see. There we go. Trying to get a view where I can see, yep, it's not too savage. I might just need to tilt that up a little bit. There we go. That's looking reasonable, actually. And so once I get something like this that says, yep, that's probably where my square box will sit quite nicely, then I'm good to go. Do remember though, do some experimenting, and you'll find that if things go funny, a frequent reset by just clicking back into the mode and getting used to it. Also, locking the station points really does a great job of making it a little bit easier to use.